All right, good afternoon, everyone. And to some of you, it is still morning. My name is Jen Dempster. I am the General Manager of the Joint Air Traffic Operations Command, JTOC, out here at the Command Center in beautiful Warrenton, Virginia. And I've got a pretty cool panel with me today. I do have a couple of gentlemen that are with me from National Weather Service. I have Ken Wadowski. I have from our Tech Ops team, Mr. Carl Alvarez, and I have from our Airspace, NASA efficiency side of the house, Mr. Walter Williams. So thanks, guys, for joining me today. But we wanted to have a conversation with all of you to let you know that the FAA is 100% prepared and willing to help out any way we possibly can during hurricane season, which many of you know is already underway. We did have Beryl go through. We just had Debbie, and now, unfortunately, right in trail of Debbie, we had Ernesto go through. But the FAA is prepared to handle that in all levels. And a way we protect our people and our equipment is all thanks to a lot of these gentlemen that are right here on this panel with me. We troubleshoot some outages, we direct our resources, and keep our airspace safe and open for response and recovery on a continuous basis on a day-to-day basis. But before we get into this panel today, I want to show you all a very quick video that we have to kind of give you just a little bit of an overview as to what we do on a day-to-day basis. I hope you like it.
When hurricanes hit, the FAA stands ready 24/7 to protect aviation and to open relief and restoration routes when the storm passes. Hurricanes can be seen forming days in advance, but path and intensity are hard to predict. The FAA is well prepared for any severe weather and ready to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions of a hurricane's wind and water. As the storm's path becomes clearer, the FAA moves fast to safeguard personnel and equipment. Radars are shut down to protect antennas and their motors from wind damage. Backup generators are checked for fuel. Air traffic control towers, which are engineered for strong winds, are evacuated and equipment is covered. During hurricane events, the FAA may issue frequently changing flight restrictions and other updates to pilots. This helps maintain air navigation services away from the storm to keep the system safe and efficient. The FAA is the single interface for government, military, and airline partners. This focused communication boosts the national airspace system's resilience and its ability to bounce back after disruptions. When the hurricane passes, the FAA moves quickly to fix damaged equipment and return services to hard-hit areas. Stakes are high. Without air services, the aftermath of a hurricane can be disastrous. The FAA's response saves livelihoods and lives. The FAA trains year-round to be ready for hurricane season, and that experience makes a difference. Technology is important, but the foundation of the FAA's hurricane response is the people who protect aviation before, during, and after the storm.
So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview, a really high-level overview of what we do here at the JTOC. And the good thing is, like I said, I've got these gentlemen that are with me here today that can kind of help explain a lot of what goes on. But we want to make sure everybody understands that before, during, and after a storm, we ensure that no matter what, the flying public, the general aviation, the drone pilots all know exactly what we are doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure that we are protecting the national airspace system during any of these events. One of the things to make sure everybody does understand is that the FAA does not control the airports. We are actually a guest at the airport. We work at the airports, we work at different facilities, but we don't close runways, we don't open runways, we don't close airports, we don't cancel flights. We make sure that we work them and we operate them in the most safe, efficient, and effective way possible, whether there's a storm, hurricane, anything that's coming through. But we want to know, how can you help us and how can you partner with us to get that message out there and to ensure that everybody understands exactly what we do? But for now, what I want to do is I want to give these gentlemen a really good opportunity to explain to you what they do from their perspective of what the FAA does and how we interface. So I'm going to hand this over to Ken, who's with our National Weather Service, and he's going to give you an idea as to what we do there. Ken?
And good afternoon. So what we do at the command center, I'm one of 6 national aviation meteorologists that are staffed here at the FAA command center. And what we do is provide daily briefings to support the decision making of the FAA, both planning and with the PERDI advanced planning groups. And when there is a threat for a tropical cyclone or any kind of severe weather, multiple times per day, we brief the administration that helps provide planning for air route, air traffic, and any public events that may come up. And so right now, I'll show you, this is the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season outlook. This was just updated about a week ago. And as you can see, we're looking at a very active hurricane season. We just had Ernesto, so we have 5 named storms so far on the year. We're looking at a total of 17 to 24 named storms. That includes tropical storms and hurricanes. We're expecting hurricanes at 8 to 13, which is well above normal. We're looking at very warm waters in the Atlantic and favorable winds, and that helps these storms develop fairly rapidly. And that's what we're seeing now developing with Ernesto. That's expected to hit Bermuda here over the next couple of days. In addition, with hurricanes, we're looking at 4 to 7 major hurricanes to develop. That's category 3 level and up. That's with 115 on the sustained winds, all the way up to 155 is what you would see on a category 5, which we've had a lot of major storms in recent years, especially along the Gulf Coast. And so with that, it only takes one storm to change your life forever. You know, one storm hits a location, you're dealing with storm surge, flooding, damaging winds. And in addition to that, up in the sky, we're looking at a lot of turbulence that can develop even hundreds of miles away with one of these storms. So a lot of impacts and a lot of briefings that we do here to provide the FAA the information they need to make the proper decisions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carl.
Thanks, Ken. So good afternoon, everyone. So with the information that our National Weather Service partners let us have on a constant basis, we tend to prepare, and preparation, as everyone knows, is integral to technical operations. It's integral to our success when facing significant incidents like a hurricane. Now, based on the National Weather Service input to us, we prepare based on a timeline, more or less. We take the information, since this is a notice event, we start ramping up significantly 72 hours out from tropical storm force winds making landfall. For example, those 72 hours prior, we'll start our coordination calls and start moving potential folks around and pre-staging them so that we can be prepared once the storm moves closer. As it does move closer, 48 hours, we'll take other steps to reposition key resources to make sure those are safe. And we'll make sure our people are safe also by either releasing them or non-essential folks, or we'll keep our key players and we'll make sure they are able to respond in a timely manner. It really gets interesting around the 24-hour mark. We do tend to pre-position other folks if necessary, again, based off the information that our National Weather Service partners give us on the size and intensity. If we have to, again, we'll pre-position more responders and equipment. We'll also start entertaining our mitigation plans. And at this time, our communication plans will be implemented also. Now, once the hurricane has come through, we go through post-hurricane response measures. And first thing, as Jen said, safety is key. We start accounting for our employees. We also conduct our damage assessments and identify priorities once it is safe to move about. We also begin our restoration. Once those priorities are established, we begin our restoration of services and recovering facilities to pre-incident condition if applicable. A couple of examples that we have of some hurricanes that we like to showcase is Ida. Hurricane Ida in 2021 was a category 4, to refresh everybody's memory. It did make landfall at Grand Isle. One of the things that are very significant to this response is that hotels were not available. It was very difficult to move our first responders from other locations to come in. So we got very creative, and we set up 3 camps with our own RVs and trailers. Our technical operations folks not only took care of those camps, but they also took care of all the equipment when it came to the restoration and recovery of the facilities also. Again, these were RVs and trailers that were set up, and they were did have all the generators, all the facilities. The cleaning of the facilities was established by our technical experts out there, and they were kept up until they were no longer needed. Along with that, we started our infrastructure restoration with obviously communication and surveillance being first. And we did have to mobilize some mobile assets, for example, towers, communication satellite dishes, and a few other things we mobilized to ensure we had communications and surveillance available to our controllers. We also utilized our flight operations folks. They did fly over a couple of towers to get some pictures to better give us a better view as to what the damage was to towers and whatnot, and to our other facilities. We also utilized a program for the first time, which was UAS. They managed to fly a couple of routes for us to get some very detailed information, especially when it came to some equipment that was totally destroyed out in Grand Isle. Another example would be Typhoon Mawar. That was in 2023. This was a Category 4 typhoon that made landfall close to, or excuse me, on Guam. What made this significant is that we had to establish a life sustainment bridge. It included the United States going to Hawaii, onto Guam and Saipan. Our technicians were extremely busy putting together pallets with the military of all the resources needed to transport over to Guam. They did establish passenger processing processes to move people quickly over to Hawaii, then on to Guam. And of course, our flight operations counterparts also gave us a huge assistance by airlifting personnel between the United States, getting them into position to fly over on contract or military flights. So as you can see, Tech Ops has their hand in a little bit of everything. They everything from life sustainment to actually restoring services and recovering facilities. They are a great bunch of folks, and extremely smart and very good at what they do. And now I'll turn it over to Walter.
All right, appreciate you, Carl. As a command center NOM, a National Operations Manager, my team members and I, we work in conjunction and communicate effectively with Carl, with Tech Ops and his team members, as well as Ken with the National Weather Service and the meteorologist. And of course, we talk with Jen Shop as well too at JTOC. The main thing that we're concerned about, in addition to everything that these fine people just said, is safety and efficient flow of traffic. So with the effective communication that we have, knowing that what equipment is out or what the weather is doing as far as the hurricane, we start to implement what we call traffic management initiatives to keep your plane, your flight moving safely and efficiently. And before I get into what type of traffic management initiatives we enact and implement, I want to show you a quick hurricane video on Hurricane Debbie that just happened recently. And from this video, you can see basically Hurricane Debbie is completely over the northern portion of Florida. So aircraft are not going to fly through that hurricane. So we will take them east and west of the hurricane, and those sectors with air traffic controllers staffing at Jacksonville Center couldn't handle the volume. So we would have to slow down the volume by drawing an imaginary line called the airspace flow program to only give those air traffic controllers who are controlling those airplanes in Jacksonville Center sectors a certain amount of aircraft per hour to maintain the safety and efficiency of the NAS. Also, we was using once some of the hurricane start, hitting, whether it was Tampa or if it went up and hit Charleston, and we find out about the airport closures or anything like that, we would stop and put out notice to air missions. So pilots definitely check that to make sure that you know that the airport is open if it's safe to land there. Once again, like Carl mentioned, the FAA, we do not close airports. That's the airport authority. But once talking with Tech Ops as well as the National Weather Service, we're keeping up to date on what to do and what traffic management initiatives to implement in a timely fashion. We also conduct twice a day, morning and evening, a hurricane teleconference with the affected facilities, whether it's the airports, TRACONs, and also air route traffic control centers that's experiencing the hurricane impacts. They give us a real-time up-to-date or update on all of the operations, whether what airports have been closed, what type of effects they've had from the or impacts from the hurricane. And of course, we implement additional traffic management initiatives accordingly. Sometimes we put in route structures to go west, or as that video showed, west of the hurricane, because as Hurricane Debbie started moving up into the North Carolina and South Carolina region, a lot of aircraft that fly along the East Coast usually fly those routes. So we had to reroute the aircraft west, going over into Tennessee, Georgia, down into Florida. So that's some of the stuff that we continuously do. We are always continuously monitoring the operations, making sure that we get your flight there safely and efficiently. And of course, other things we tend to do once they have thunderstorms that hit the airport directly, we'll put in ground stops, which we stop all movement of traffic on the ground, or even ground delay programs once major airports are impacted with the thunderstorms associated with the hurricanes. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jen, and appreciate your time.
All right. So I'm gonna put Carl on the spot here in a second. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't realize what we do here at the FAA is we have what we call a JTOC crisis action team. And the cool thing about that is a specialized group of individuals that when any type of a major event happens, whether it is COVID, unfortunately, I've dealt with COVID, but right now for us, it's during hurricanes. And as Carl mentioned, we went through Ida, we dealt with Idalia last year, we dealt with Marwan last year, and both of those, between Idalia and Marwan, we actually pulled that into what we call our JCAT, which is that crisis action team. And that right there is a group of special individuals that are specialized in different areas of the FAA. Like Carl is with technical operations, Walter is with the mass efficiency, being able to move traffic around. And we work with Ken a lot on the National Weather Service. But then we also have individuals that are air traffic controllers. We work with FEMA. We work with TSA. We work with a lot of different individuals that will ensure that no matter what, we are maintaining operational steady state in that area. And to give you an example, with Idalia last year, and that's why we always make sure we reiterate multiple times that we don't control airports. Idalia, when it went through up the west coast side of Florida, impacted Tampa greatly, and the Tampa Airport Authority closed the airport. Now they can close the airport if they need to. However, air traffic is still there. We are still there working all of the emergency equipment that is flying in and out and around that area to ensure that if we need to help Coast Guard get in there to maybe evacuate people that did not evacuate in enough time, or to get, as Carl was saying, we get technicians in there to help with equipment. So Carl was part of the team that helped stand up that JCAT. So Carl, can you kind of touch on the JCAT side of it from the tech ops and how you actually helped stand that part of that division up?
Sure. So the JCAT, as Jen said, it serves as the primary hub for coordinating national level response efforts. And part of that is myself with the rest of the team that's in there, air traffic, and a few other system operations security folks. So when we stand that up, our job is to make sure that the decisions are being made as far as bringing back equipment, airports, and so on, meet the needs of FEMA, who provide the life sustainment for the folks out there. We also keep in the back of our mind that we understand people are also at those airports wanting to get out. So we try to do our best to prioritize all the equipment that's out. What do we need to bring back first that are going to help the airlines the most to get those folks out of there? That JCAT can operate 24/7 if need be. We do have enough staff for that, and it'll operate as long as it's needed. It's to ensure that those services are back, whether temporary or permanent basis. But we will be there to make sure that the aircraft start moving. Once they move safely, again, that's when we tend to scale back operations and turn that over back to the JTOC.
So the nice thing is with the JCAT, like you said, it's almost like specialized attention for that area that is impacted by the weather. And we do work with Ken quite a bit. So Ken, let me just ask you really quick, how many different weather products are you looking at to ensure you're giving us the most accurate depiction of what is going to be going on?
Well, we look at not only satellite and radar, but we look at a host of model data and some of the 10 or more models at a time to see if there's consistency in track forecast, intensity forecasts. Not only that, we coordinate with other federal agencies within our NOAA, which is the Central Weather Service unit, and there's over 20 meteorologists that we have staffed in those centers. So we'll all get on board and make sure that what we're saying is a consistent message to deliver to the partners in the FAA that also comes in line with what the National Hurricane Center is producing.
Okay. And then with that, so based off of that information that we get, Walt, how does it impact? I know you deal a lot with also not only the facilities, but you deal with the stakeholders, including all the airlines and the GA. How does that help you determine what needs to be done?
So with Jen, so basically we reach out to the actual FAA facilities. My specialists that we have here, we talk with specialists at the facilities to come up and formulate a plan to keep the aircraft moving safely and efficiently. We always have teleconferences, and after we come up with a plan, whether we're going to implement an airspace flow program or any type of route structures or ground delay programs, ground stops, we always involve the stakeholder partners and let them know and keep them informed real time of what the plan is. We always want to get the buy-in as well and make sure that everybody is on the same page with the effective communication and continue to move your flight from point A to point B safely.
Appreciate that. Carl, I'm going to put this over to you really quick. So with the fact of we've got all these different facilities that are out there and there's a lot of equipment, how do we protect the equipment so that way we don't have any damages? And we, as you said, we try to get everything back up and running, knowing that there are people at these airports that want to get out. So how do we protect that equipment?
So there's certain key equipment that we are able to take protective measures. For example, some of our Mausers, lighting, for lack of a better term, out on the runway, we can protect those. Some of our facilities, we can harden a little bit more with sandbags and whatnot. Towers are already built to where that glass will sustain a certain wind speed. Once it's going to exceed that, we have to pull our controllers out, obviously. But most of our other equipment that is out there is already built to withstand some winds. We just take extra measures like folding down antennas. Our radars, they are able to, as the video said, they are able to spin freely. Their motor is disconnected so that it won't damage anything in the gear components. So things like that is what we can do to certain equipment. The rest of our equipment usually fares pretty well. We're pretty happy with that. So again, the key equipment is what we take interest in the most.
So Ken, let me ask you this really quick. Do you guys do phone calls or do you guys do any type of calls? I know you talk to facilities a lot. You will talk to other centers about, what they have going on weather wise and kind of coordinate, but do you talk to airlines at all or do you have those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, so we are monitoring the TAFs, the terminal aerodrome forecasts that come out from United Airlines, American Airlines, even JetBlue. And if anything is off of what the weather service is producing, we will coordinate and make sure that we're coming along and making a consistent message. We don't want to have various messages going out, especially with an impact like a tropical system.
So let me ask you this, what is the difference? And Walt, this is kind of for both you and Ken. So when it comes down to whether we have, say, I know we've heard the terms tropical storm, tropical cyclone, then we have hurricanes, there's different levels of hurricanes. How do we determine what those different levels are? And then Walt, how is it that your side of the house, the NASA efficiency, getting these aircraft moving, how do you handle that? So Ken, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, as far as the level of storm, a tropical storm contains winds at 39 miles an hour or greater. That's what designated as an actual tropical storm. And those winds go up to 73. A hurricane is 74 or greater. But as you go up in impact from a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm to, say, a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane, it has riveting effects with water levels, wind speeds, turbulence. Everything goes up layer by layer with severity the stronger the storm is.
Okay, so Walt, how do you guys impact that?
And so to Ken's point, Jen, basically we will assess the damage, kind of like Carl mentioned earlier. We'll reach out with tech ops, making sure that the airport, the facilities, the FAA facilities have the staffing, they're functioning properly, they are open, they are valuable options just for people to safely land there or depart from there. Once we find out that information, we will formulate a plan for us, implement any type of, we will find out how much volume can they handle, because they may be partially up and running, but not all the way back to completely normal operations. So that's the main thing we want to find out is if everybody's accounted for, that everybody they have the staffing to work the traffic, to try to get those supplies and get people to their family members and you know, basically restore everybody to normal operations.
You got it. So Carl, I'm going to switch this to you. Sorry. But my question to you is, what do you find is, I guess, I don't want to say more damaging, but what has a harder impact? Would it be, you know, like a hurricane one with strong force winds, or do you think the torrential downpours that come with some of these storms, like what impacts more our equipment? The wind, the rain, both?
Well, you know, they both have their own unique characteristics, and I'll tell you, the wind we fear because it tends to affect our power, a lot of down power lines and stuff like that. However, when it comes to the rain, sometimes we can't get our responders out there in time because of the flooding. So that equipment goes out unassessed, and if it's damaged, the more water can get in there. So they each have their own perspectives that we worry about. It'd be hard to say if one's tougher than the other.
So you know, you're just talking about the equipment possibly going down in some areas. Or is the equipment, granted, there's some things you can take down, you can protect it.
Right.
Do you have, is a lot of equipment on, say, generators, or is it a lot of stuff? I know we have stuff on commercial power. Do we have a lot of things that are on generators that can still
Yes.
keep us up and running?
Yes, we do. The redundancy, part of the redundancies is power, and a lot of the key equipment is on generators. Those generators are very critical to us, especially when it comes to the towers, our communication, and our surveillance equipment.
Ken, how long has the National Weather Service been working with the FAA? Do you know?
It's several decades. You know, we've been writing a forecast from our field offices for quite a long time. And then the FAA Command Center meteorologists have been on site here, newly spun up to a level 5 of us beginning in about 2011. But I think we had a meteorologist at the centers beginning in the 90s, if I recall.
I think so. I'm not really sure. I know I've been in this building for a few different years and a couple different positions. And I know the nice thing is National Weather Service has always been there, which I 100% appreciate. So I do want to go around really quick and just have everybody, I know I had said National Weather Service. What is your position, Ken, Walt, and Carl, and how long have you been in that position? So Ken, I'm going to start with you.
I've been a national aviation meteorologist for 1 year now. I transitioned over to the aviation side in August of 23, but I've been with NOAA for 24 years, and this is my 8th position. So a lot of my focus has been operational meteorology within 5 states, and I did a lot of work with emergency management and communicating high-risk weather events to FEMA and then deploying to the Gulf Coast for Category 4 and 5 hurricanes.
So how does this differ from what you were doing previous, or is it very similar?
It's similar to that. We're providing decision makers with weather information to make decisions. However, the difference is I used to deploy down to the Gulf Coast, say a month at a time, and working on site for an actual disaster instead of preparing for something, there would be a preparation. but then there'd be a large response to pull survivors and rebuild a state essentially. So different kind of briefings, different kind of goal.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, I'm glad you're here and you have that
Right.
background, which is awesome for us. It's amazing for us. We benefit. Walt, how about you?
So I'm a National Operations Manager here at the Air Traffic Control System Command Center. Been in this role going on about 1 year now, but been at Command Center for almost 4 years in different roles that have led me up to this point to be a National Operations Manager. But basically, I deal with the whole national airspace system, operations managers across the country to come up with the final decision to keep your flight moving safely and efficiently. Prior to getting to Command Center, I was operations manager at LA Center. So this one differs because I deal with the whole national airspace system. So I'm learning parts of the country that I didn't really have to focus on. Now I focus on the country as a whole to make sure everybody is safely moving around from point A to point B. And we
So
want to get you as quick as possible too.
you went from earthquakes to hurricanes.
Yeah, exactly. We're from earthquakes to hurricane. Exactly.
Like,
At least I can see those coming.
right? All right, Mr. Alvarez, what's your story? What's your background?
So I am the Crisis Response Emergency Operations Manager for Technical Operations. Ever since I joined the agency, which was about 15 years ago, I have been associated with emergency management, starting off in SysOp security, then moving out to the field here in Central Service Area, and then working for headquarters now in my current position. So I had the chance one time to work for air traffic as an executive advisor, but I was brought back to the emergency management world and been there ever since.
Well, I can tell you right now, I appreciate the fact that you were there because I rely on you immensely. So just for everyone's, again, from the beginning, I am the Joint Air Traffic Operations Command General Manager. So anything that pretty much happens in the national airspace system, whether it's a weather event, a security event, a safety event, equipment goes out, anything that happens in the system pretty much goes through the JTOC. And we try to figure out the quickest and easiest way to mitigate impacts to not only the flying public, but to our stakeholders and to our control workforce. Which part of that does include these hurricanes that go through. We work, this is a very defined team that works on trying to make sure that there's no impact to the operation. I see one of the questions that we did get in is reference controllers, leaving the tower of the facility when a hurricane is coming and when they're able to go back and who determines whether we can resume normal operations. Again, as we were saying, and I think everybody can kind of weigh in on this one, especially Carl from his side of the house. But, when we look at these hurricanes, the biggest thing that we worry about is not only our equipment, but our people. They are first and foremost. It is NAS first people always. And because of that, we ensure that, we really rely on Ken is when he gives us that sustained wind. When we look at anything about 35 knots or more sustained, meaning it's constantly at 35 knots or more, we really don't want our employees out there on the road. So depending on what shakes out with the weather, what we may end up doing is having some employees come in early for their shift, and then they're there for the rest of that time frame, say for their 8 or 10 hours at the most. And that allows the ones that have been there the entire day, they can go home and be with their families and be off the roads. We are very, very cognizant about how we get our employees to and from their locations. We don't normally ever shut down a facility unless there really is something major going on, which luckily, knock on wood, we haven't really had that happen. We will determine normal operations, I believe. And Carl, I'm going to hand this over to you on that one. But I know from the air traffic side of it, basically, as soon as Carl tells me all our equipment is up and running and we're good to go, then we're going to go. But Carl, I'm going to rely on you for that.
Yeah, so as you said, as soon as it's safe to move about, we conduct damage assessments. Part of that damage assessment is inspecting the facilities, whether it's a tower, a TRACON, or a center. Especially our towers, we want to make sure the infrastructure is safe. There hasn't been any water intrusion or anything like that that's going to compromise some of the equipment. So once we give the all clear, we'll turn that particular facility back over to air traffic, and they're more than welcome to populate and start working traffic.
Okay. And that's a good thing too. And again, I think that's where Walter's side of the house comes in, is, trying to make sure that once we can kind of get back to that normal steady state, Walter, how do you guys deal with the airlines to help them recover?
So we would actually reach out to the airlines and conduct a conference call with all of them and see if they had sustained any damage or if they have any, whether it's cancellations, anything that may be going on once they get back to a normal flight schedule or anything that's impeding their normal flight schedule. One of the things, just going back even on the air traffic control side of the house, each facility has contingency plans in case of hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires, as far as evacuation and how they go about assessing damage as well in conjunction with Carl's shop and tech ops. So we basically, reach out to them. We conduct these planning webinars all the time, mainly every 2 hours, starting early in the morning to, basically check up on each facility throughout the day and make sure everything's working safely and efficiently.
Nice. So I am going to ask one last question before we wrap this up. And I think all of us can probably, even Ken, you from maybe even previous to being with the FAA, is there like a specific storm or hurricane or anything that has stuck out to you? I know for me, it was Maria and San Juan. Ken, anything that you had from your side of the house that kind of sticks out?
Being a New Yorker and growing up on Long Island, I started out with Gloria in 1985. That's what got me into weather. I was just 7 years old. However, the storm of the century for Long Island has got to be Hurricane Sandy that happened in 2012, which started out as a hurricane and merged with a winter system, became a superstorm. And it's very rare to have a storm track from east to west across New Jersey like that and push such a storm surge into New York City. Very rare for a storm to impact an area at that angle. And it caused such a large area of sustained winds, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, and such a high storm surge. It was catastrophic levels for the Northeast. I mean, it was something that you couldn't even make up in a book if you tried to write it. It's just one of those events that you just don't see, in any given lifetime very often. And it's a storm that may never be repeated.
Well, let's hope it's not repeated. Carl, how about you?
I would have to agree with you. Hurricane Maria. That one really tested our capabilities, especially being geographically separated. It just seemed like that one took quite a while to bring back because of the amount of damage we had. So it really tested us.
I'm presuming out of that, there were a lot of lessons learned that the FAA was able to implement after that hurricane.
Exactly. All of them, as a matter of fact, we like to take something away from them. Yes.
Well, anything for you?
For me, I think it's going to hit personal, but especially being from Memphis, Tennessee, even though I went out to the West Coast, now back to the East Coast. But Hurricane Katrina, I had family members in New Orleans, especially in Mississippi as well. And of course, all the torrential flooding, the levee breaking and flooding the city of New Orleans. Even to this day, it's still a lot of damage, and they still haven't completely recovered from that catastrophic hurricane. It also flooded a lot of areas in Mississippi, and I was at Memphis Center at the time, and yeah, it was definitely kind of heartbreaking to see all what was going on down there, and it hit home personally because of family that I had in those areas.
It is hard. And I know I agree. I think with all of you, I mean, I've got family and friends in Long Island that were affected by Sandy, Maria, I've got friends there, and I've got a lot of friends that were in Louisiana that were impacted. And I know me personally, I went through Harvey when it went through Houston, and it just kind of sat there and spun. So I think all of us can definitely, I think that's what kind of drives all of us and the passion for what we do on a day-to-day basis, especially during hurricane season. So I do want to thank the three of you for joining me today for this webinar. I think it was amazing. I hope everyone that is watching kind of learned something new today or has some additional insight as to exactly what we do, and know that no matter what, we are there for the National Airspace System to ensure that everyone is safely flying. We keep them away from the storms as much as we can. We are completely transparent with industry, making sure that they all know exactly what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. I think the biggest thing that we can ask from you is just, help us make sure that we're reaching out to the travelers and letting them know what's going on, the general aviation, drone pilots, just, helping them realize that we are here and that we're here to ensure their safety across the National Airspace System. So with that being said, I want to say thank you again to Ken and Walter and Carl. Thanks for joining me, and for everyone that did join us online. I hope you at least learned something new out of this, saw our really cool video on hurricanes, and know that we are here to keep the National Airspace flying safe. Everyone have a great day.